Hi, my name is Mike Gillard, and this is Self-Made Man, the podcast for men who want to leave their mark on the world and create a legacy of honor, integrity, and achievement in every aspect of their lives. I'm glad you're here, and once again, it is time to forge your destiny. So if there was an actual contest to determine the most interesting man in the world, our guest today, James Altucher, would certainly be among the finalists. You know, the best way that I can describe James is that if you were to take a brilliant mind, throw in a large dose of the most common human flaws such as addiction or self-doubt, and then add on a mouth that must absolutely speak the unfiltered truth no matter how uncomfortable or self-deprecating it may be, then you would have James. And he is ultimately guided by a heart that simply wants to give love and be loved. He is the ultimate underdog who never gave up, and he's used the strategy and the methodology that you're going to hear today to create a massive wave of success after nearly a decade of failure. He's previously owned a hedge fund. He's been a writer for HBO. His recent book, Choose Yourself, which is excellent, by the way, was named one of the top 12 business books of all time by USA Today. And he's also a regular contributor to TechCrunch, the Financial Times, Seeking Alpha, and the Huffington Post. Over the past couple of years, he's also become a renowned angel investor and recently launched his first newsletter company, which has produced over $15 million in first-year revenue. So James has been there and done that in just about every form of work and industry that you can think of. But above all else, James is one of the best storytellers that I have ever met. It is his greatest talent, and his dedication to authentically sharing every detail about his life, the good, the bad, and especially the ugly, is something that I find incredibly brave and incredibly inspiring. So with that being said, please welcome James Altucher. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Mike Dillard here, and today we are with one of the best writers, I think, that is out there in the world today, and a phenomenal entrepreneur, someone that I've enjoyed getting to know and following and studying for the last couple of years, Mr. James Altucher. So James, welcome to the show.
Mike, thanks so much. And it always is such a pleasure when someone thinks I'm a good writer. So I really appreciate you saying that.
I would have to say that you and Neil Strauss are two of my favorite.
It's so funny you say that because I'm actually reading right now The Truth.
Yeah, same here. Very good, very good. Well, we are here today because one of your last book, which was a huge success, I thought had a phenomenal message in it, which was Choose Yourself. And you know, when you and I had talked about what to discuss on the show today, I thought that your idea was fantastic, which is basically how to choose yourself in order to become a self-made man. So I can't think of a better person to come on and really share your story and all of your unbelievable experiences that you've had in your journey to become a self-made man. So I'm really excited that you're here today.
Mike, thanks so much. And I think, you know, it's funny because you and I probably both get the same types of emails and we hear the same types of things from our friends and from our family. Like, people are unhappy in their jobs, they're unhappy in their workplace, they're unhappy in their cubicles, and they want to figure out a way to A, maybe find their passion or their purpose, and B, break out of this almost like solitary confinement that they have found themselves in their day-to-day lives. And they're really sad because if you look at, like, let's say the millennials, ages 18 to 35, their average salary has gone down from $36,000 to about $33,000 in the past 20 years. And while it's not all about money, in fact, we'll get into that in a second, it's actually about the exact opposite of money. It still gives you that conflicting in prison feeling, particularly as things like student loan debt has gone up by a factor of 10. So I really feel for, like, you know, the 100 million people in this situation.
Well, if you wouldn't mind, I think you have one of the most fascinating stories that I've ever heard as far as your journey to become a self-made man goes. If you wouldn't mind, share a little bit about that for maybe 15 to 20 minutes, and then let's dive into some of the methodologies that you've outlined in the book on how you essentially use your Choose Yourself process, which I think is brilliant, to get to where you want to go.
Sure. So you know, I was working at Home Box Office, HBO, the television network, and I was working on their website, and I was doing a lot of really fun things for their website. And when I say fun things, like, I would interview prostitutes and drug dealers at 3 a.m, and take the transcripts and the photographs and put it on the HBO website. I was essentially creating original web shows for them, just like they were doing original TV shows. And so what happened was all these companies, entertainment companies and even not entertainment companies, were calling me and saying, A, what's this website stuff? Because this was back in 1996 before every company had a website. And B, can you do the same thing for us? And so I was still a full-time employee at HBO, but I then set up my own company on the side, like literally a few blocks away, and started my business. A lot of people write to me and say, oh, I have an idea for a business. Can I quit my job tomorrow? And I'll tell you, I don't know the answer to their questions, but I'll tell you, for me, I'm very risk averse, although it won't seem that way in about 3 seconds. But it took me about 18 months of building my business before I quit my full-time job. So people have to realize it's not like an overnight thing that your dreams just come true. And even then, the worst day of my life was probably the first day I was an entrepreneur, because I lost my biggest client that day for some reason, just by coincidence. And what happened was I built up, I'm making a long story short, I built up, and that's a whole story. I was doing the websites for every movie studio, AmericanExpress.com, ConEdison.com, and so on. And I saw this is not a business that's going to continue, because the tools are getting a lot easier, so I won't be able to charge as much money. My skill set wasn't a rare commodity anymore. It was becoming a ubiquitous commodity of building a website. And so I sold the business. I made an enormous amount of money. And then I was, there's 3 skills: making money, keeping money, growing money. And I knew how to make it, but I didn't know how to keep it, and I didn't know how to grow it. So there was one period in this one summer after I sold my business and it was all cashed out. It wasn't like a paper thing, but literally I lost, and I was like a drunken rock star on steroids. Like, I was the worst. I lost probably $1 million a week for an entire summer, until literally I had $143 left in my bank account. And so I lost my home. I lost all my business contacts because I thought I was completely mentally ill, which I was in retrospect. I was on a daily basis trying to figure out how to kill myself, and thinking that my kids aren't yet old enough to know me, but they could benefit from my life insurance policy. And so fortunately for me, maybe not for my kids, I don't know yet. But fortunately for me, I decided, you know what? And this didn't just happen once. Actually, just to kind of make a much longer story even shorter, this kind of happened several times where I realized I was good at making it, but then I would immediately lose it. And in the most stupid, insane ways, until finally, not only did I lose my money, but I lost my family. I lost 2 homes. I was just broke, and, I was an addict in every way. And I had to look at myself and say, well, what has worked for me on the way up, and what did I do wrong on the way down? And the answer turned out to be pretty consistent, and it had nothing to do with money. It had everything to do, and I really stress, it had everything to do with, was I treating myself well? Was I physically healthy, which basically means eat, move, sleep a little bit better today than you did yesterday? Was I emotionally healthy, which simply means, was I hanging out with people who were also healthy and who were loving and supportive and who I loved and supported? Was I mentally healthy, which means, am I writing down, it means for me today, do I write down 10 ideas every single day? Usually ideas to maybe help other people, but no matter what, just 10 creative ideas a day, so that the creativity muscle inside of me doesn't atrophy, which it does very quickly for everybody, not just for me, but for everybody. Stephen King writes about how when he was laid up in bed for a few months because of an accident, he literally couldn't write. And this is one of the most popular commercial successful writers in history. He couldn't write after not writing for a few months. So you have to always exercise that creativity muscle or it atrophies. And then finally, the spiritual side, which doesn't mean necessarily praying, although you could do that if you want. But for me, it meant waking up every day and figuring out at least 10 new things to be grateful for. And not easy things like I'm always grateful for my kids, I'm grateful for my wife, I'm grateful for all the things in my life. But find difficult things to be grateful for. Like right now, we're hearing on Skype, probably your listeners are hearing sirens in the background. So that's annoying, but I can be grateful that I live in such an amazing city that there's so many people here that inevitably there's going to be noise, there's going to be sirens, there's going to be activity, and that's why I'm here too. So those 4 things, doing them every day, and I try to focus on how can I 1% improve every day on these things so I don't put too much pressure on myself. Just 1% improvement builds a habit. And I did that, and I've been doing that since my last low point. And I can tell you, Mike, and I was broke when I started doing this, and I decided I was going to do this every day. I was like dead broke, divorced, unhappy, and an alcoholic. And since I started doing this, my life has changed almost 180 degrees every 6 months. It's been a magical experience.
What I'm curious, because I can relate to the 3 the 3 money rules that you have as far as how to make it, how to keep it, and how to grow it. Because that is a similar journey that I've taken myself since I turned 30, and I really had the same big epiphany, which is I figured out how to make it, haven't figured out how to save it and how to grow it. What were the biggest wins that you've had or lessons learned when it comes to that second stage, which is how to protect it? Because the skill sets, which I'm assuming you've concluded as well, as far as risk taking and being an entrepreneur, are the complete opposite of what you need to then, grow and protect what you've made as an entrepreneur.
I'm always going to kind of get back to, everybody wants to know, well, what skills should I learn? What product should I build? How can I be an entrepreneur? And actually, being an entrepreneur is just one way to make money, and it's not even the most successful way I've made money. But and by the way, I've made all. I'm not bragging when I say this because it's been a painful 15 years for me or 17 years for me. But I've made back all the money and then some. But that was a byproduct of, again, like just take any of these factors of physical, emotional, mental, or spiritual. Like if I stay out late at night, let's say drinking with someone who is not so good for me, then the next 3 days it takes to recover. Like as you know, if you do anything like late at night, even if you're not drinking, it probably takes you at least 1 day to recover from that. You can't really afford to take any days to recover if you're on a journey of success. So you really have to kind of take care of yourself and be around the people who aren't going to drag you down, and make sure there's time in your life to be creative, which you can't do if you're not doing the other 2. Like if I'm sick in bed because I haven't been getting enough sleep, I'm not going to be creative and I'm not going to be grateful. So they're all linked together. And, just as an example, like one way to lose a lot of money is to take helicopters back and forth every other day to Atlantic City playing high stakes poker with a bunch of people who seem like they're your friends, but really they're just trying to take money from you all day long. So that's like a small example, because if you're good at poker, you might do well. But in the long run, it's that attitude that will suck you dry. And if that attitude consistently permeates your life, a seeking of intensity in all outer aspects of your life instead of your inner life, then you're going to be in trouble and you're not going to be able to hold on to your money. Like, let me ask you, how did you, when you've had a downfall, say, what was the real reason? Not the technical reason, like, oh, I invested in this company and the partner ran off with the money. Like, what was the real reason inside of you that caused the loss?
Interesting question. I would have to say a lack of business acumen or maturity.
I don't believe that. Like, everybody needs to, of course, get the experience in business to have acumen. But what specifically were you doing wrong that leads you now to think you didn't have business maturity?
Well, in the industry that I've grown up in, it's, the internet marketing world, the network marketing world. You're surrounded by people who have an incredibly positive, abundant mindset. And it's an interesting world where it's very collaborative and supportive, through an affiliate marketing thing where we don't see each other as competitors. We see each other as peer groups who can support one another, which is a very different business environment than the traditional world. And that garnered an environment of extreme trust to where I had never run into a bad person in my life who was dishonest or tried to rip me off or whatever. And so having the possibility that would even be possible just was not a part of my reality. And unfortunately, I did meet someone that did not feel the same way and that really took advantage of my, I guess, trusting nature or ignorance or whatever you want to be in. And that was very, 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 well, it ended my business in that regard.
So let me extrapolate a little, and I'll tell you my experience in that world. And this happens. It happened to me, of course, in my 30s, because I didn't start doing this, what I call this daily practice, until I was about 40. But I would associate with negative people who eventually would have their hands in my pocket and take money out of it, and it would really work out negatively for me. And it was because I wasn't focused on being, just because someone, people say it's not personal, it's business. That's never true. I only work with people who I really trust them because I really personally have faith in them, and I've seen them in action, and I know that they're going to pick people who also they personally trust and respect and love and support and want to make wealthy. I work with people who I don't want them to make me wealthy. I want to make them wealthy. And so that makes for a virtuous cycle of work. So I mentioned earlier, I feel like my life changes every 6 months, and I'm always trying new things. I'm always trying new ideas. So 6 months ago, I decided to enter the internet marketing world. I had never been in that world before in my life. So I started a business, and I decided, okay, I'm going to sell a few products based on some very specific knowledge I have about certain things. So very specific knowledge, meaning my general audience that I write for every day, they may or may not be interested, but I know there is a market that's interested. And I immediately said, more important than the product, because I know I have the knowledge, more important than the product is the people I surround myself with. So I hired an extremely good CEO who I have seen in action and I trusted completely. And I've had a lot of experience now in knowing who to trust, who not to trust. He then was able to hire programmers, customer service, content marketers, salespeople, editors, and so on. But now I needed, an idea is not good unless it's the purifier of any business, of course, is profits. So I didn't know if the idea is good until there's profits from it. So we started selling something and using all of our connections, and we diversified all the affiliates that we work with. And so it's been a little more than 6 months now. The revenue so far this year, since it started, is about 15 million in revenues. This is just one thing, I've started. It has nothing to do with the money. It had to do with, was I mentally creative? So I was coming up with a highly unique product that nobody else has ever encountered. And was I surrounding myself with all the right people? And was I physically as sharp as I could and healthy as I could be so I could develop this product? And was I every day expressing my gratitude to these amazing people I have around me and making sure that a good chunk of these revenues goes to them, so that everybody is not just incentivized, but feels like we're actually going to change people's lives because we're helping people and we're making money at the same time.
Now, I have to ask, can you share the business or the website with us? Because everybody on the show is going to be thinking, wanting to go check it out and see what you're referring to.
I'm actually not sure if we're even marketing this product anymore because we had a closing date. But the basic website for it was the altucherreport.com. And I have two products there. One is kind of a cheaper product where I give, I write like a blog post every day, and I've been doing that for 5 years. I still do it every day for free to my audience. But then I decided, okay, I'm going to take much more specific knowledge and use my network of contacts to get much more specific advice, and use my editors to help me put that together. And that'll be a $40 or $80 a year product. But then I also used to run a hedge fund, and I knew a lot of hedge funds. So I put together a more financial product, like, don't invest in any fund. I'll do it for you. I'll find the best ideas that the 100 or so hedge funds that I still keep in touch with, I'll find the best ideas that they're analyzing, and I'll get all their research. And then instead of paying hedge funds enormous fees and never getting your money back, you can just pick and choose my recommendations that I see the other hedge funds working on. And, these are they have a team of 100 people doing the research, and I'll just share their research with you.
Very cool. So how's so you've jumped into the educational space. How's that working out for you? I mean, are you enjoying it? I guess is the first question.
Oh yeah, I love it because you know why? I'm actually helping people. Like so for my cheaper version, I don't want to call it the cheaper product. The Altucher report is kind of the low end price product, but there's still like amazing information there. Like for instance, a lot of people were asking me, how can I make $2,000 in a weekend? So rather than me kind of scratching my head and coming up with 10 answers, I called the CEO of a $1 billion company that freelancer.com, where this is what they do. They help people make $2,000 in a weekend. And I asked them, what's the easiest way for people with no skills to within 3 months get the skills where they can start making $2,000 every weekend? And he personally sent me the list of 10 jobs, and I put that in as one section of 3 or 4 in my more low end newsletter. But then the higher end newsletter, which is more financial based, I realized most people really do not know anything about the stock market or companies. They only know what they read on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, which is all lies. It's like 100% disinformation. Right. And the Wall Street Journal only talks about Apple, Tesla, Google, Walmart, and there's 7,900 other public companies. And that's the ones that the hedge funds, of course, focus on, the companies that nobody else is looking at. So I'm going to help people get literate in what a company actually does and how you can determine its success by sharing the hardcore, years of research that I get from my friends who are in the business. And again, I don't even know if I'm still marketing this product because I have this great, excellent team that I trust. And we kind of just closed the marketing, although we'll probably reopen it again in 6 months. But it did very well. All the products have been doing very well because I've been delivering value and continue to deliver value for free for millions of people every single day. So, and I still do. And if just people want to have a little more value, they could sign up for the lower end one. Or if people want stocks, it just takes one good trade, and you make back 10 times what you spent on the newsletter. And I give couple picks every month. So it's all about, I'm trying to help other people make their lives better. And in order to do that, I had to hire people and make sure the business is sustainable. And it's win-win-win for everyone.
Very cool. Well, congratulations. That is, 15 million in revenue is a massive, massive accomplishment. And I know we have some mutual friends in that space whom you'd probably call a mentor when it comes to publishing, who's been a contributor here to the show and someone that I look up to tremendously in the Porter, and his crew over there. So
yeah, no, they've helped out a lot, but I've had 80 affiliates. So every name in the business, particularly on the financial side, has really been supportive because they see this is a good product that's going to help people. Like there's so much and you've seen it, there's so much just BS information products out there that get, and I was trying to figure out how can I make my message stand out as signal versus noise. And the way to do that is really by consistently, and I've been doing this for 5 years, consistently trying, helping people for free. And this is actually a philosophy where I disagree a little bit with the Stansberry folks and some other, not that their philosophy is wrong, but I'm the biggest believer that you've got to give great value without asking for anything in return. And then when you deliver even greater value where it's costing you money and time and opportunity out of your pocket, it's not such a bad thing to say, hey, okay, this is what it costs, but you're going to do well with it. And they already know I'm signal as compared to noise because I've proven it for 5 years. I mean, I do 5 posts a week, 12 podcasts a week. I speak at every invitation I get in most cases. And, it's a lot of work to show that you have a message that is important to you and that you think, I don't say this is what you should do. I say this is what I did. And you could then decide if you're going to listen to me or not after that. And, fortunately, a lot of people keep listening.
No, absolutely. Absolutely agreed. I found the same to be true in my experience as well. And so, jumping back to your first, I would say, huge public foray where your name was everywhere, I would say it was about a year or two ago when you launched Choose Yourself. I mean, I heard you on at least 3 or 4 different podcasts, and it was a phenomenal message that I think absolutely every single entrepreneur needs to hear, everyone in general, but an entrepreneur especially. For those who haven't come across the book or read it yet, could you summarize the concept behind Choose Yourself? And then let's dive into that process.
Sure. And there's really like two things there. One is that the economy, we talked about this a little earlier, like incomes are going down. More people are becoming temp employees because, look, I was on the board of a $1 billion revenue temp agency, and while I was on the board, we went from 200 million in revenues to $1 billion in revenues, not because the economy is doing so great, but actually because of almost the reverse. Companies were firing all of their employees. And when I say companies, it's not like some law firm down the street. I'm saying like Walmart or Amazon, or I shouldn't say those two companies, but like FedEx or Campbell's Soup, or I even forget the names of all our clients, but they were all Fortune 500 clients. And they weren't necessarily firing the employees, but they were just saying, we don't know what to do. We've lost control of our understanding of all the laws and regulations. So we need help. And so we would take over, I would say wait, but this company would take over as, we'll manage all your employees, but they're going to be temp employees now, but we'll take care of all the benefits and all the insurance issues and, a lot of the management issues, and in some cases, even housing issues. We'll take care of all of that for you so you can focus on your core business. But the economy is turning into this freelance economy, and you either become a temp employee or you become the average multimillionaire has 7 different sources of income. So I just mentioned to you my foray into internet marketing, and that's one foray among, let's say, 15 that I've done in the past 10 years or 6 years. And the important thing to remember is the gatekeepers are going away. So what do I mean by a gatekeeper? It means when your livelihood depends on someone saying, yes, we like Mike, so we're going to give him some money or give him something to do. So let's say you want to publish a book. A gatekeeper might be an agent or a publishing company. Let's say you want to pitch a TV show. A gatekeeper might be a TV network. Let's say you wanted to have a job at a big internet company. Well, then the gatekeepers might be Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, whatever. But the gatekeepers are kind of universally, they're not necessarily going away, but it's actually a much happier life to work around them and to figure out how to work around them. And so in the book, Choose Yourself, and I wrote the Choose Yourself Guide to Wealth, and I wrote The Rich Employee. I wrote all these books about this. I give techniques for how to think about these things, not specific techniques, because as you know, in this internet, even in your sector, the actual specific techniques change every week practically. But I give ways to think about these things so you can help yourself figure out what the right techniques in your industry are. But I always get back to physical, emotional, mental, spiritual health. If you can't start at that foundation, nothing after that will work ever again.
Can you give us an idea of what your, let's just call it your choose yourself routine looks like, on a morning basis or on a daily basis? And I know you gave us a little dive into the gratitude and all of those other stuff, all of the other items that you listed earlier. But, I'm always really curious when I talk to someone who's really, really successful, how they start their morning.
Sure. So I wake up, and before I even move, I immediately want to get the gratitude muscle kicking in. So I think of at least 3 things then that I've never thought of before that I'm grateful for. So you have to give yourself a little bit of pain there. It's got to be difficult, or else you're not really exercising the gratitude muscle. So I'll think of 3 things, 3 to 10 things really, but let's just play it easy. 3 things that I'm grateful for. Then I read. The brain. So I was speaking to Dan Ariely about this, who wrote Predictably Irrational and several other great books. And he was telling me the brain is most active 2 to 4 hours after you wake up. So if you wake up at 6 a.m., your brain is most active from 8 to 10 in the morning. So I make sure from 6 to 8, I'm reading. So I'm not really doing anything that requires heavy brain activity, but I'm reading and building my knowledge, and I'm sort of igniting what I really want to do, which I'll get to in a second. So I'm reading, and of course I'll have some coffee just to again make sure by 8 o'clock my brain is like on fire. And then at 8 o'clock, from 8 till let's say 11 or noon, I'm writing. I write every single day because that's my particular passion, and it's the way I feel I can help people the most. And I hope I'm correct about that. And I just love doing it. But I read stuff that kind of ignites my writing muscles. Like I'll read a great writer or several great writers. I usually read a little bit from a nonfiction book, 2 or 3 fiction books, and maybe a book about games because I love all types of games. And so then I start writing, and I'll write for, either one of my newsletters or one of my blogs or sites that I post for, or I'll answer questions that people have asked me, and I'll form it in a story that answers the question. And then really then from like noon to 2, I'll deal with, I want to get exercise. So I'll like take a walk or exercise. I usually haven't really eaten much by this point, but I might take a nap if I haven't slept enough, because I try to get at least 8 hours of sleep a night, 8 or 9 hours of sleep a night. And then from 2 to 4, maybe I'll deal with business issues, because I sort of feel like business issues are never really rocket science. Like I don't need my brain to be super active after that, and then after that, I just call it a day.
Nice. I found the same thing. My primary output is in the form of writing as well. And I've always found that those early morning hours are the most productive. And just if I can shut everything down for 2 or 3 hours and just write, I will just be so prolific in my output, as opposed to waiting until the later times in the afternoon.
You can't wait till the later time. Like by noon, if I haven't written, let's say I have some like crazy writer's block, and by noon I haven't written, you have to just stop. Like you can't do it.
Yeah, agreed. So James, one of the questions that I've had personally, as I've watched your career and read your work over the last couple of years, is it seems to me that you're one of the most networked people that I've ever come across. And I'm wondering if that was intentional or accidental or just a matter of, your personality type. But so many people in so many different industries, and I've always wondered if there was a process behind that.
I'm really super shy. Like if I go to a party, I'm the guy sitting in the corner, and I almost feel like I could feel it almost physically coming over me, like almost like a clamp on my mouth and like a shadow in my brain. Like I can't, that's it for me. I've shut down for the evening. Or if I'm meeting new people, it's hard for me. So I make a really big effort when I'm meeting people or interacting with people to kind of study them and research them in advance and figure out how I can offer value to them. And also, I've been very fortunate. I've been in many different industries. Like I've mentioned to you already, I've been at HBO, then I've been in an entrepreneur, then I was in the hedge fund business, then more recently I've been in the internet marketing business. I've written 17 books, so I've been in the publishing business. I've worked at almost every newspaper in that you could think of. I do podcasts where I can reach out and say, hey, would you like to promote this book you just wrote? I'll help you. And that's an opportunity for me to talk to people where I can learn from them, just like we're doing this podcast here. And all these things together, being in many businesses, having many friends of friends, and also constantly thinking of ideas of how I can help people. That's all I do all day long, is figure out how to help other people, which I'm not saying I'm such a charitable guy. I'm not. I'm also selfish in my own ways. But that is like a great... having many different things that you do, and over years, not tomorrow, but over a period of decades, you build up bit by bit a network. I'll give you an example. In 1997, a company I was running helped out broadcast.com right before their IPO, and they used, when broadcast.com was having an excellent IPO, it was one of the best IPOs in history. They were using their work that they were doing with me to do a press release to help their stock price. And of course, now 17 years later, if I want to pick up the phone and, hey, Mark Cuban, can you come on my podcast? He of course says yes. So it's not like he's my best friend. It's not like I could call him tomorrow and say, hey, how's it going? But, for these types of things, I can, work together with him, because he was promoting a product a year ago, Cyber Dust. And I say, look, we've worked together before. We've kept in touch over the years because I would drop him a note once a year. And why don't you come on my podcast? And I'm happy to talk about Cyber Dust, which we did. And we talked about other things like what he was doing the moment he became a billionaire. Like he had all sorts of great stories.
So I think this is unbelievably important, and there's a lot of wisdom behind this approach here. And I just want to clarify for folks out there who are listening. When you say, you think of 10 people to help per day, you're sitting there literally proactively thinking just about people who come into your life or in your life lately. Hey, there's something I can do. Whether it's a connection, an introduction, a blurb on your podcast, whatever it may be, to help this person without anything at that time specifically, on your agenda for them. It's just, you're literally sitting here thinking, man, John's on my mind today. What is something I can do to help out John and his, XYZ venture?
Well, I'll give you an example of today. So there's an author that I really like. He's a well-known author, and I've never met him before, never talked to him, but I wrote him a note and saying, I really love your books, and here's what I like about them. And by the way, I see you're doing a new business venture relating to the publishing industry. Here's what I like about it. Here's maybe 10 ideas how I can help you get the word out about some things you're doing. If you want, maybe I can talk to you about it. And, I'm not doing this for any reason. Like I'm not trying to sell him on anything. I don't want to sell him anything. I got my own things I'm working on. I literally just want to talk to him. Now, not everybody is waiting for a message from James Altucher so they could talk to me. So maybe out of 20 of those that I send out, one person will respond and say, hey, that's cool. I'd love to talk to you. And that's really how it works.
That's awesome. And do you send that via email or do you send them a physical letter?
No, I send it via email. Like I get a lot of physical letters in the mail and they just sort of pile up because I don't have the time to look at them. Not even time. It's just not part of my routine to look at like physical mail. I'll tell you a funny one. Back in 2002, I was dead broke again, just like the first time. And I sent out all these emails to mentors saying, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and ask you questions? Nobody responded. Because why would anybody respond? It's not like Warren Buffett's going to say to his secretary, hold everything. I have $50 billion and James Altucher just wrote me and will buy me $1.25 cup of coffee. He's just not going to respond. So then I took it one step further, which is, write letters like, hey, how can I help you? Well, no one's going to respond to that either because I just gave them a homework assignment. Like now they have to write back to me how I could help them. Like no one wants a homework assignment. So I have to do all the work. And so I wrote letters to like 30 people with ideas of how they can improve their business. And I had nothing. I knew none of them. Like it looked like I was networked, but I'm not. And one person responded and I had written to him, here's 10 article ideas you should write. He said, why don't you write them? And so he hired me to write these articles. Another person who was a big hedge fund manager, I gave him free software that I had written because I knew his style of investing because I had researched him and I had implemented some ideas he had written about in the 1960s. And I said, here's the software for it. And I'll even show your programmers how to use it. And I don't want anything from you. And he hired me he basically allocated his personal money to me and I started a hedge fund. The third person responded to me out of 20. Nobody else did. A third person responded. I didn't respond to him until 13 years later, last year. And he came on my podcast, Nassim Taleb, and and he said this is the one interview I'm doing this entire year. So, it's all good things happen when you want to help people.
That's awesome. And you know what? I think that is probably the perfect way, to put an end cap on today's show because that is such a valuable message. So, James, where can people go out to learn more about you? Where would you like people to go? Check out the book, check out your website. What's a good landing point?
If they just go to jamesaltucher.com, and my last name is spelled Altucher, if they just go to jamesaltucher.com, then they'll find everything about me and probably stuff I wouldn't even want them to know about me, because I tend to be very my family thinks I'm way too revealing in my posts, but that's how you have to be. You have to show when you can't just sort of stand on a pedestal and say do this. You kind of have to show when you were weak and you did this, and that's how you helped you move from weakness to strength.
It's the authenticity that has made you who you are. Guys, go check out jamesaltucher.com. Jump on his email newsletter and his blog feed. And James, like I mentioned, has some of the best writing, the most entertaining writing that I've ever seen. And if you want to learn from someone in order to make, in order to become a better storyteller for you and your business, he's one of the best in the world to learn from. So James, thank you so much. I know you've got a busy morning there with the family, and I want to thank you so much for coming on to the show and sharing your wisdom, and it's much appreciated.
Mike, thanks so much again for inviting me on the show, and I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.